This week's Anaglyph Jukebox. Take it away, Mr. HEISER.
Welcome to today's edition of the Anaglyph Jukebox. You never know what you'll find on the old jukebox. Let's press B31. Okay, we've got Crime Comics 3D. Monthly comic books reached their peak popularity in America during World War II. Added to the ranks of kids who were the traditional audience for this disposable entertainment on pulp paper were millions of adult servicemen and women overseas. Comic books were good for morale. It was nice to see that Batman and Robin were taking care of fifth columnists and saboteurs at the Gotham waterfront, while Americans were under fire in Europe and the Pacific, with Captain America, the Human Torch, and the Submariner battling Hitler and Tojo. How could we lose? At least in the funny papers. This more adult comic book audience was given more adult content, meaning more sex and violence. Publisher Lev Gleason began the trend with the July 1942 cover-dated Crime Does Not Pay, a landmark issue that started an enormous trend. By 1949, 1 in 7 comics on the stands were crime comics. With peace, the superheroes faded. Nothing had ever sold like the superheroes until the crime comic genre was created. Gleason gave editor Charles Bureau and artist Bob Wood a profit-sharing plan and urged them to create new titles. Bureau claims the night he met both a kidnapper and a pimp in a bar as the book's inspiration. Others give Gleason complete credit for the concept, which, after all, was also based on a film and radio series from MGM. It was a sales sensation, and although it spawned dozens of imitators, even a few good ones, it was always the most successful of all crime comics. It began selling 200,000 copies a month, and 6 years later hit 1 million copies a month in 1948. 2 years into the run of the title, in issue number 24, Bureau introduced a narrator figure that would be a precursor to the horror hosts of EC's titles, Mr. Crime. It has to be noted that he was awfully similar to a character created by master cartoonist Milt Caniff and Noel Sickles called Mr. Coffee Nerves, for the coffee substitute Postum. Mr. Crime was at times encouraging to the antiheroes of these sensationalized tales of popular gangsters like Machine Gun Kelly and Babyface Nelson. But the toothy-grinned Mr. Crime was just goading them onto their last panel demise at the long arms of the law. Crime comics' immense popularity among teens and young adults brought scrutiny to their contents, which regularly featured unmarried adult relationships, drug use, sex, violence, torture, and murder. My mom used to read these comics to me at bedtime. A post-war rise in juvenile delinquency had to be explained somehow. Hey, Johnny, what are you rebelling against? What do you got? A New York City psychiatrist named Frederick Wertham cobbled together some of his research at the Lafarge Clinic with inner-city children and a whole lot of projection and fear-mongering, and published first an article, then a book, called Seduction of the Innocent, the Influence of Comic Books on Today's Youth. Superman was an un-American fascist. Wonder Woman, a lesbian into bondage. Batman and Robin, a homosexual couple. Well, okay, that one was true. And crime comics offered detailed plans for robbery and torture. Guilty, with an explanation. How can you have a crime comic and not show crime? A landmark 2012 re-examination of Wertham's source material by researcher Carol L. Tilley concluded that he had, quote, manipulated, overstated, compromised, and fabricated evidence, unquote. He misprojected both the sample size and the substance of his research, making it out to be more objective and less anecdotal than it truly was. Ultimately, Wertham did not adhere to standards worthy of scientific research in his cultural crusade against the assassin of youth, comic books. However, his work caught the public imagination and the attention of an ambitious senator named Estes Kefauver, who had a reputation of fighting organized crime. Since the mob was believed to have control of the distribution of magazines and comic books, it was at least tangentially related to his mission. He had Wortham testify. The good doctor stated objectively that the comic book industry was more dangerous to children than Hitler, the architect of a genocide. In the summer after the Senate hearings, 15 comic book publishers went out of business. The industry that was worse than Hitler formed their own self-censorship group, the Comics Code Authority, which neutered comics in America for 30 years.
Hello there, Dorothy. Can you hear us and vice versa?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. So where were these taken?
So they were taken in Alexandria, Pennsylvania, at the Artslug Festival Day.
Now, where is it? That's in PA, you said, right?
Yeah, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Oh, great, great. And now, how are these set up? It's like it looks like on steps. Is this like a location you walk into, or how does that work?
Yeah, you have the streets is totally blocked to traffic, and so you have vendors all along. And then this is the Huntington Memorial Museum, and they had a contest with pumpkins. So I guess a lot of kids participate, and then they put them on totems too. So these were just a few of the pumpkins. I think some of them are very creative.
Now, where is this? What are you shooting with? Sorry about that. What are you shooting with?
This was taken with W3.
And is this a block or is it a park? Or how do they do this?
No, it's all along the streets of the city, well, the village, I would say, because it's a pretty little town. And they just set up all around the cities. In some are in like this one is from in front of a house. Then
Nice.
most of them.
What year was this, or is it this year?
Yeah, that was this year in November. Of course, they didn't have any last year, but apparently that's the longest Artslug Day festival in Pennsylvania. Started in 1975.
So what is the history of it?
Well, it's about apparently there was a trader whose name was John Hart, and he was an Indian trader, and he was using hollowed log to feed his horses, and so he left the thing there, and then he was trading right at the spot, and so people starting to recognize the spot as being where the trade was going on, and they starting describing the area as the Heart Slug, and that's why they started using that for arts and crafts fair.
Interesting. And that was since 1975, you're saying, right?
Yes, but the trader, of course, was in
Right.
1744. That was a while ago.
Oh, yeah, a bit.
And here, that's kind of an example of what people do, arts and crafts, things that they sell.
Okay, that's on a table. That's actually for sale, that thing?
Yep.
That's something that would live in the attic for a while, I'm thinking. But yeah. Very cool. I noticed there's no mask on this. I don't know, I'm Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Thanks.
well, I was the only one wearing a mask on that day, but it's outside. That those are vendors on the streets, so they're in little tents.
Yeah. Well, so long as nobody got hurt by the pumpkins, they've all been vaccinated apparently. This is great. Thank you, Dart. Thank you so much, everyone. Oh, let me make sure stop my share so you can all.
Yep.
Thank you very much for sharing with us, Dorothy. Appreciate that very much. Glad you're getting out and around. Now we're going to head off into into VR, and I'm going to explain a little bit, and then I'll come back after this because it's really going to be pretty cool. So if you got, your fancy glasses, that wouldn't hurt. I think there are some people right now watching from the VR world, so we're going to be joining you in a moment. Now, every discipline has its jargon, because we say stereo window. Now, could you imagine what that would mean to anybody outside of this small community? That must mean you have your speakers on your windowsill, right? So you're going to hear jargon like teleport and portal, which really means just going through a door into another room. Although you can imagine that you're on the Starship Enterprise, if you like. And worlds, think of them as locations. If you hear the term shader, it gets used a lot. It originates with perspective. If you were here for Dr. Susan Barry's presentation, she explained just how shading can turn a 2D object into a 3D object in your brain due to certain stereo cues that are learned behavior. Now, over time, that term began to describe a great deal more. There are a myriad of ways to manipulate images by using a program called Unity that Jay and Dave will briefly touch upon later. Now think Photoshop designed by an alien civilization. And that comes pretty close to describing Unity, although it is learnable and there are courses and people can pick it up. But it takes a little bit of thinking. Anyway, take it away, Dave. I'm going to go hide.
Thank you kindly, John. Just reach for my water, which wasn't there. I'm going to share my screen here, and this will all work out. So, as you mentioned, the NYSA has sort of slowly been expanding into virtual reality as time has gone on. And the wonderful part about VR is that almost all of it is rendered in stereo 3D. So in this realm, stereo 3D content just appears as a seamless part of that world. There's no special glasses once you're inside VR, it just appears. So we wanted to try to give people outside of VR a glimpse of what it's like inside, viewing stereo as a normal part of the experience. And as John mentioned, it's very difficult because the goggles are so immersive. So what we're going to do is first show some captures from VR, and then we'll go live into VR in Anaglyph with a little tour. So about almost a year ago, Jim Harp set up this world in AltSpace, and you can see here's the NYSA logo, and I've captured it in side by side. And so I'm in rooms right now. If you want to click through, if someone wants to give the link to this week's follow along, you can view it in different formats. But anyway, you can grab a drink at the lower left in VR. There's a little button to grab those. And then kind of moving to clockwise in our world, we have a couple pictures from past shows and from our past members. We have an image from the DALI show by Life is 3D Jim McManus. We have a spider from DENIS. And we also have a little tiny fireworks you can grab to fire off the DALI. And then we rotate around. We have a little animating Johnny Laser at the bottom middle, a funny little elephant. And then we have Brian May on the right. And then meanwhile, in the background is a stereo 3D 360 photo that appears as the kind of the outside world. And here's just a close-up. So you can see that the stereo 3D really comes out well inside this world. There's Brian on the left, and then a nice alien shot by Ted Papoulis. We also have, this is kind of a long wall. We have a nice ViewMaster floating in there, so you can put real physically modeled objects into the space. Phantographs also work really well in here. So there's a little hole in the wall where you can look down and see phantographs popping out at you, which is pretty neat. Then we cycle around, and here Jim has provided a stereo view of the old-timey Flatiron building with a 3D view of the new Flatiron building, along with a little animated old-time stereoscope down at the bottom, which we'll see in a second. We've also got a virtual Times Square. So if you go and walk into that kind of dome, that half dome, you'll be filled up. There's really no great way of showing in a straight slideshow what this looks like. But if you look in the upper right, there's a screen up there. And if we zoom in a little bit through the magic of VR, what we can do is you can see that on the right-hand side, actually I'm right in the middle. So that's me looking up at the billboard. We have a stereo 3D camera in this world. So this world is accessible on our webpage. And Jay also put a portal to it in the room. I think it's in the second room. This is a nice angle of the stereoscope. So that's the NYSA world in AltSpace. There are some other worlds as well, there are some other applications like VR chat, all which are these social worlds where stereo works. Another one's VTime, but we're just using AltSpace. And another progression for the NYSA was when we started moving into broadcasting our Zoom events into AltSpace. So a shout out to the folks out in AltSpace right now. So I'm just going to spotlight everybody. Jay's sending a message there. There's people all kind of moving around as I spotlight it small. Let me, let's see if someone can spotlight me back. Okay, I got it. So just looking into the events, this is our old world. So the people in VR are standing around, they're watching the Zoom meeting. And then on the right-hand side, we are showing the side-by-side view pumped to each eye, so everyone is seeing it in real 3D. And meanwhile, around the walls of the room, you can see in the back, over Kurt's shoulder in the back, there's some stereo views, again, all in full color. And this is Tom Zariga, our friend from Magnetic 3D, speaking at one of the meetings. And this image should give you a good indication of what you can expect. So here's the Anaglyph that everyone is seeing in Zoom. And then on the right-hand side, they're actually seeing it in color in their room. So I think that is it for this portion. So what happened then is that we moved along, and Jay Kuznets, who is a member of the NYSA, he's also a member of the Golden Gate Stereoscopic Society. And last Saturday, they had a virtual reality live art open. And so we're going to go to that view, or to that world. So if the people in AltSpace can click and teleport, I think Jay sent a message already. So the people right now are moving from the NYSA event space over to the Golden Gate space. And here's just a quick couple 2D images. So these are just flat that I took of the art gallery. Like anything, taking photos and captures in 3D is a little bit more complicated than normal, so I didn't have the time to pull it out. But basically, people walk around, and on the right-hand side, you see the Zoom meeting, and the artist talks about their image, and people go around and look at the image in full 3D.
I want to get you 1 second, Dave. See that little thing? Point at the control, like that the thing that's floating in the picture. What that is actually you see that, and that's where your controls are as you're moving through these spaces. They allow you to do separate things. Sorry, I had to say that because I think people were wondering.
That's okay, and it's actually interesting because when you take a stereo picture, the thing that we see on the right is Jay's because he's sharing his screen, but I also have one taking this picture, and I have to have it hidden off to the bottom right. So like in some of these, you'll kind of randomly see actually if I reverse it, right? So see that random thing floating there? It's floating in the negative space in front of the camera because I should have moved it out of the way. But yeah, so that's a good point. So it looks like people have moved into that space. So let us go off to VR. And I will need to put my headset on. And
I also want to thank you, Dave, for showing such a flattering picture of me. Thank you very much.
well, we try here at Nysa. Okay. So here's me shaky moving my headset around. So let me put my headset down. And I'll angle that up in a second, but we did promise 3D, so let me press that button. So now we are in stereo 3D, and let's do our full screen. And okay, camera guy over to Jay. Hello, Altspace people.
Hi, Dave.
There's Jay.
Hi. Welcome to the Golden Gate Stereoscopic Society Gallery. The club was formed in 1936 as the Oakland Camera Club, and then eventually changed to emphasize stereoscopic. We had wanted to recreate the experience of a live art opening, and with Workspace, we're finally able to do that. So in here, we also have links to our website. And on the other wall, I'm going to go across. And can Dave follow me?
Yeah, my battery in my controller died. Let me hot swap that.
I'm sure you're all aware, everybody watching, that doing this, it takes special skills. One of them is being able to juggle 12 bowling balls. So just have patience.
Okay, maybe you could, there you go. So we've got a duplicate of each room for each one of our members. And the green buttons are the teleporters that can get us instantly from room to room. So let's go visit Jack. Here I've clicked the teleporter. And they've shown you the cave.
If anybody's looking at this in Anaglyph, it's good. I mean, you got to admit, it's and doing all this at once, making it so that we can see into there, be on Zoom, be on that's all complicated. But Jay's going to get to what's not complicated soon. Just wanted to chime in. Sorry, Jay.
Okay. Jack tends to do a lot of macro photography, which when you visit, you can see giant insects. This is a cave, I think, in California. Has a lot of depth, especially seen at almost life-size here in the gallery. And let's move on to another picture.
Thank you.
And Dave's trying to aim. It's a bit tricky.
Well, the guy's waving in my face.
So, there's always one in the crowd.
Each month we have a contest with an open competition and a theme. So this theme was probably humor or photo composition. Jack likes to use that fork in a lot of his images.
And if everyone's, even though it looks a little, like I said before, a little cartoonish and a little, it doesn't seem like it's flowing seamlessly and easily. When you have the headset on, it's completely seamless, and moving is seamless. So it really does, we're doing our best to represent it, but I can assure you it's a lot better when you have the goggles on.
Okay. So let's move on to Oleg's gallery. I'm going to hit the button. And just waiting for Dave to, there he goes. So Dave's showing you the gallery, and if he just turns around, you'll see me. So this image used this free software program Stereo Masking. On the Golden Gate website, there's links to different software resources, and there's a link in the gallery to the website. So those of you in VR can see the road just popping right out of the wall. So
Was this a topic one week, Jay? With the
yeah, I think it was like through the window.
Some really cool through the window images in the gallery.
Yeah, very effective in art space in VR.
And the resolution is pretty incredible. I know that's on people's minds who do this. It's pretty damn incredible.
Okay, so I'm going to show you just in Workspace how to add pictures. Could you highlight me? Okay,
your spotlight.
So you can create a world in Workspace and go to an area panel. Just so you can upload normal flat photographs pretty easily. I'll just choose our logo. And then once you have it, you can move it around and enlarge it and basically get it how you want to position it. I often roughly position it in 2D because it's a bit tricky working in a three-dimensional space on a flat monitor. You see there's issues where you can go through a wall.
So by 2D, you mean running the AltSpace application on your PC or Mac?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. But here you go, you can place it. Now, let me show you, let's see. Mode. I'll just get rid of that. And you can see everything is listed. So you could get rid of that. So 3D is a bit different, where instead of a straight photo, you have to make a kit, which is done in Unity. And there's also some open source shared kits where people have uploaded their pictures that you can use in your own worlds. So I'm going to choose the dragon. And again, once it's loaded as a kit, it's just like a regular 2D picture. Make it big, move it around. And there you go. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see what it's like in Unity. Okay. So you're seeing the Unity 3D gallery. And I'm going to zoom out. And you can see the galleries are actually separate rooms. The teleporters get us from room to room.
So each one of those is actually a gallery for your member, right? For the members, correct?
Yes.
And just to be clear, this was actually designed by aliens from Alpha Centauri, is that correct?
Almost.
Thank you.
I just hit, here we go. Let me get back into the gallery. So you see on the bottom, there's all of these pictures. You can highlight the pictures, and then you can drag and change what's on the wall.
And you've already worked those pictures that are in that asset file there at the bottom. You've worked them in Unity to turn them into a
Yep.
stereoscopic thing that'll work in AltSpace, correct?
Like, this is where the shader comes in. There's like materials and shaders, where you could see it's the straight side by side, and it's just a matter of setting one up and duplicating it, and just using, you see it's all numbers just to keep things organized.
Can you click on one of the circle things at the bottom? So then,
Yeah.
just so you can see at the right where you've set up this, that it is side by side, and then you could do left, right, or over, under.
Right. And then just a matter of changing, just drag and drop. Yeah, and that's a brief overview. There's people who make low-cost worlds that you can buy and drop your own pictures into. And there's plenty of people on AltSpace who are building worlds. And in the after party, I'll be happy to talk, and Dave will be here to answer questions about doing this yourself.
Sounds good. So, and then back in the main room, in this one, we're just going to continue the meeting in this.
Was that a picture of
Yes.
the people who actually designed Unity software that you had up on the screen? Oh,
If these aliens.
Okay. We're back in the main room, and back to you, Johnny.
excellent, great. Hey, Jay, that was fantastic. I think the big takeaway on people who are afraid to do it, the easiest way to get in would be to go with the AllSpace tools and stick with 2D until you kind of figure out what you want to do. Am I right, Jay and Dave?
Yeah, you get used to the environment, get used to placing other people's pictures. You can join groups that give you access to free assets. And I've put a bunch of stereoscopic pictures you can play with. And then you move on to either having somebody build a Unity world, or you can start doing it yourself. There's lots of tutorials and courses in virtual reality, how to make virtual reality.
And actually, yeah, Jay, sorry to just to cut in. Yeah, probably the best way is for if people subscribe to you, or they can go to groups in Alt VR, and they can subscribe, and then they'll have access to the stereo 3D kits.
Yes.
And I don't think we mentioned it. AllSpace is a thing from Microsoft. It's a right. It's a
Yes. Oh, also there's a component. There's the website for AltSpace that gives you tools and lets you join groups and see events. And then in VR, it's a bit more limited, but you work with both.
What would you call? Just out of curiosity, I never thought of it till now. What would you call AltSpace? Is it a port? What is it?
A social VR platform.
Got it.
There's
Social.
there's about 50 others similar.
But you find this one the most friendly?
Yeah, it has a feature to allow us to have large groups. You know, we could have hundreds of people in one meeting.
Really interesting potential with all this stuff. As you can, I think the big takeaway is there's huge potential, massive potential. Jay and Dave. Thank you for all of you've accomplished for us and the stereo community at large. I think people, you know, best to get into the baby pool first, and you'll get it. And it really is fun. If I had more time, if I could squeeze another minute out, I would be on it all the time, because it is quite fun when I get the time to do it. I think Kangol should kind of be involved. You know, shouldn't they have like a Kangol hat thing which you put on? I'm sure someone's working on it now. Kangol in VR. Because I like to wear the hat now. I mean, it actually gets around. I feel better with it on my noggin. But that's another story. Maybe I'll get an endorsement from Kangol. Anyway, now it's time for part 2 of an interview I recently conducted a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Brian May. We've gone back and forth for quite some time, but his schedule and mine. Amongst other things, we discuss Sir Arthur C. Clarke, the author of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and why should we wait anymore? Okay, Dave, blow the hatch bay door and get us into the pod bay.
Good to see you. Look good.
Thank you for making 3D cool.
Oh,
That is what you've done with your fame is amazing, and it wouldn't be moving as well as it is right now. Even what we're doing, getting in youngsters, and it's phenomenal what you're doing. What you're doing on Instagram is incredible. I can't keep up with you, man. You're like impossible.
well, coming from you, I'm highly flattered. I feel honored that you say that. Thank you. Yeah, it's a passion. I tell you, I'm right in the midst of it now. I'm up to here in stereo, which is lovely because I just bought a stupendous collection. Well, I'm in the process of buying a collection, and it will the collection is of an order of the collection that I have already. So the two together would be just such a stupendous resource. And I'm in the middle also of transferring everything into a charity so that the archive will continue after I've gone. So this is a real kind of passion project for me at the moment. And it's right here in front of my eyes at this moment because we're right in the middle. The stuff is so beautiful. I find it.
You've already taken me, ahead in questions because I was going to ask you about them. I'm going to begin with this one because it's a curiosity for me. First of all, welcome to NYSA Presents, the first regularly scheduled program where you see what you've been missing in 3D. Now, of course, I want to again thank you for all you're doing for 3D, and it's just incredible.
Thank you so much.
And this one is a question I've been waiting to ask you. Did you ever run across fellow countryman Sir Arthur C. Clarke? Did you ever make any connections with Arthur?
Only through friends. I never actually met him, sadly. No, I think we might have passed the odd message, but through Garrick Israelian, who knew him very well. But no, I wish I had met him. Of course, he didn't live, on our shores for a long time.
Sri Lanka, right?
He went off to a beautiful sunny place and never came back, which was a great idea.
If anyone would have asked me what the chances were of me befriending two famous Englishmen obsessed with outer space, my answer wouldn't have been 100%. But here we are, proving once again anything can happen.
Yeah, anything sure can happen. Yeah.
Yeah, you would have loved Arthur. He would have loved you because he was just a wonderful visionary, and I sorely miss him because he gave me all the hints about what was going to happen. It was just my first random dot stereogram came through my fax machine from him, and he said, "I'm confounded with this." He told me, look behind it. I still have that fax. He was a wonderful guy to speak with, and he was a great connector.
I didn't know he did that. I mean, he was very prescient in so many ways. I mean, he invented the whole idea of stationary satellites, didn't he, for communication? What an incredible piece of vision that was.
And if you've ever read, he was 27 at that point. If you've ever read the article, and if you haven't, I'll send it to you, from Wireless World in 1945, you will freak out.
Wow,
because it seems like it was written yesterday. It's that good. It's that visionary. He didn't just do it. He explained where television program, where towers should be played. It was it was unbelievable. But anyway, I want to get onto your stuff. But I just was wondering because you seem so cut from the same cloth.
I wish I had met him. Yeah, well, I'm full of admiration.
Oh, and going back into now we'll go into the collection because you just mentioned that, you brought that up, and the idea of actually moving London Stereoscopic Company into the future, right? Because that's the whole goal, right?
Yes, it is. Well, to bring Victorian stereoscopy into the consciousness of the 21st century. Yeah, and we're sort of midway. I'm happy with how it's going, and I have lots of friends like yourself. We're kind of evangelists, aren't we? And there have been dark times, and actually times are pretty good now. And I had this nice community on Instagram who were a lot of young people getting into making their own stereos and doing really well. I've got to say, being very creative and very challenging. And we have the London Stereoscopic Company now up and running. It is a proper publishing company. We publish books, we publish cards, just like the original LSC did in the 1850s. So I get lots of kind of strange feelings up my spine because I encounter all sorts of problems in publishing and whatever, communicating, money problems. How come we're losing so much money? And I think I must be exactly parallel to the way the London Stereoscopic Company was in the beginning. It's just fascinating. Also dealing with authors, dealing with photographers, and wondering how to credit them. Now the original LSC wasn't very kind about crediting its photographers. A lot of the time you have to really search to find out who did that beautiful stuff. So I try to make sure that I'm ethical and fair and encouraging to everyone that I work with. But it's been a great challenge, really amazing.
In reading the book, I tell you, you're very fortunate to have, and you know it, Denis Pellerin. He writes, so I love how he writes. He just pushes the narrative. He makes it interesting, because he just doesn't give you all the details at once. He gets into something and goes, well, later on. And so you're really driven.
Yeah.
It's an amazing book, Stereoscopy. I feel like you should have that, The Dawn of 3D. Who wrote that one? It's almost like you should get the fanfare for the common man,
Yeah. Well, it's been a long time coming, this book, and Denis wrote the first draft a long time ago, and he writes very quick. And we've had a lot of toing and froing, and I guess we work on the voice of the book together a lot of the time, because it needs to be kind of friendly. It also needs to have authority. It needs to be kind of not condescending. And at the same time, it needs to be confident in its conclusions, because there's some kind of quite revolutionary stuff in this book about misconceptions that have been perpetuated over the years. So I wanted to make sure that was in there in a very well-defined way, but at the same time not overdo it. So you don't want to overbalance the book into fighting a cause. The book should just be a kind of dispassionate history. Yeah, we get passionate. We always get passionate. But if it gets too much into like putting down David Brewster, I felt we were veering in the wrong place. So I feel very proud of the book, and also the look of the book, the illustrations we're managing to get, because what publishing is like. Sometimes you have the perfect illustration, but the person who owns it won't let you use it. There's all that kind of stuff goes on. You have to get into persuading people and doing deals and.
Well, now you brought that up. If you ever do if you ever want to use the logo, because I own that, of course, just as you did with London Stereo. If you ever want to use it, I give you permission. It's now recorded forever. You could.
Thank you.
Put that anywhere you want.
I will do that. Thank you.
Gotta love that guy, right? Brilliant man. Like I say, London Stereoscopic. Always, find something you like this year for Christmas. For that, who else has a selection that he has?